What's going on, everybody? Good afternoon. And the NFL Combine is well and truly underway. Not because we have a bunch of players doing their workouts yet, that comes in a couple of days, but we did have one thing happen of clear, concrete value at the Combine so far that happens every year. I didn't really talk about it in my Combine video that I made a couple of days ago, but this is an annual occurrence. I think it happens with every team. You get a press conference with the coach slash general manager. This year, it looks like it was just the general manager, and he talks about where he is mentally, and he talks about where he feels like his team is. And we've just gotten that this morning from John Schneider. This video is powered by BetUS. So I thought it'd be fun to go ahead and go over some of the major points that he discussed in his press conference today. I will admit this is not the same as some other recent seasons, right? A few years ago, this press conference came right after they traded Russell Wilson. Last year, it came right after the team fired Pete Carroll and hired Mike McDonald. So this year, we don't really have anything quite like that. But we do have a new offensive coordinator, I guess. That is something. It's not quite a nothing offseason. It's not like the 2023 offseason where we really didn't change all that much going into that particular offseason. But it's not the action-packed offseason that we've had with the Seahawks in some recent years. So let's go over what he said. I don't think he said anything seismic, and the things that he said may not even be all that truthful. He might just be saying it because it's what you say. Depends on how you want to take things. But taking a look at some of the major points that he went over, looking at various tweets from a couple different people that were tweeting, basically doing a tweet along. Mostly Greg Bell, actually. Greg Bell was somebody who was covering this really well. First thing he said was, I feel bad for our fans, and he really touched on the need to get back to home field advantage in Seattle. How we have not been able to, for one reason or another, get Lumen Field back to what it was when it was, CenturyLink, back when it was the Kingdome, if you want to go back that far. And one thing he discussed specifically was having a faster defense and running the ball on offense. Now, I think that at the end of the day, what would really get Lumen Field rocking again would be winning a lot of games and losing very few games. But I think that that's a pretty logical way to go about achieving that. So he opened with that. And then he talked a little bit about Ernest Jones. Corbin Smith, I guess, actually directly asked him about the negotiations with Ernest Jones. He did say that talks are going great. He spoke at some length about how he and Ernest Jones's representative are in good contact with each other and they're working towards a new contract. He joked that I must have been looking at his phone because the agent had buzzed him an hour earlier. I being, of course, Corbin Smith in this scenario. So that looks like it is going to happen. A few other of the beat reporters talked about these comments as well. Again, everything seems to indicate that they are going the route of retaining Ernest Jones, which I do like. I hope they're careful. I hope that they're aware of the fact that off-ball linebacker is not really a position you want to be making massive investments into, and they have to find a deal that makes sense for both sides. But Schneider's usually pretty good at doing that, I suppose. It's not all that common that you see John Schneider go way over the top with these contracts. Maybe Draymond Jones would be an example of one, but other than that, usually keeps it pretty peaceful, so I don't think I need to tell him that. But everything we heard from John in this press conference indicated that things were going good on the Ernest Jones front. Sounds like he'll be back in Seattle. Before I go any further into this, though, I want to tell you about my friends over at BetUS. It is the NFL offseason, but you can go over there right now and bet on plenty of fun NFL stuff. You can go over there right now and bet on things like where is Chris Godwin going to end up for the 2025 season? Where is Cooper Kupp going to end up? Where is Justin Fields going to end up? Free agency is just around the corner, and you can try to go make some money on where you think some of the top free agents and some of the top players likely on the move will end up for 2025. And if you use promo code YouTube150, you get 150% deposit bonus on your first deposit up to $2,000 and 125% deposit bonus on your next two deposits up to $2,000. So check out BetUS, use the promo code, get your free money, get to some betting. We've got basketball, we've got hockey. Soon we'll have baseball going over there. So go have your fun over at BetUS. Okay, so the next topic that he spent a good amount of time on was Geno Smith, talking about Geno Smith and his contract. And what he said was, we're going to meet with him this week. And him is Geno Smith's agent, not Geno Smith himself. Geno Smith is, like a vast majority of players, not negotiating his own contract. But I guess the pivotal quote that Schneider dropped concerning Geno Smith was, we expect him to be our guy. I've said a few times now in videos, and I think in streams as well, that I do understand, even if I certainly don't agree with the fact that there is heavy polarization on Geno Smith and his future with the Seattle Seahawks and whether or not people want him here, whether or not people are excited to bring him back. And what I've said for a while now is, regardless of where you fall on this stuff, it's based on the evidence that we as fans get. It's very clear that it is more likely than not that he is brought back, and probably on an extension that makes him the quarterback for at least the next 2 years. That has nothing to do with whether or not that I like it or anyone else likes it. It's just the nature of the NFL, where when you get a quarterback that is good, you cling on to that guy until there's nothing left to cling on to, because there are not that many good quarterbacks out there. Even if you think that your quarterback isn't as good as another quarterback, you don't throw the quarterback you have away because you think you can get a quarterback as good as that other quarterback, because most of the time you can't. So I've said it a few times now. If you are someone who does not like Geno Smith and doesn't want him to be here in 2025, then do whatever you need to do to make your peace with the fact that there's a very good chance that he is going to be here for at least the next 2 seasons. And again, that's not me saying that because I like him or I want him or anything like that. It's because every bit of evidence that we have right now indicates that it will happen. That doesn't mean that it definitely will happen, but it does mean that based on the information we have, we can make no other reasonable conclusion. So I expect an extension to get done, maybe before free agency. I don't know how difficult of a negotiation this is going to be. It sounds like the Seahawks and Schneider and Geno's agent haven't really been in contact much lately, because it says, yeah, we're going to meet with him this week. That might indicate they haven't met yet this offseason. I mean, he is under contract in 2025 no matter what, so it's not like there's pressure to make a move right this very second. But it does seem to me that it's likely to happen. And I'll say it again. If you don't like it, I can't make you like it. I can't make you change your mind. But I do recommend you do whatever you got to do to make peace with the fact that there's a very good chance that it does happen. Now, however, he did also talk about the quarterback position in ways outside of Geno. And one thing he did say when talking about Geno was, we have to do what's right. That's one thing that he did throw in there, which I assume means we expect Geno to be the guy, but we also can't give him an amount of money that we believe to be crippling against the cap. So he did talk about the long-term plan at quarterback beyond 25 and 26, because Geno Smith is turning 35 years old. What is the long-term plan at quarterback up to like 2027? And he basically said, hopefully the draft board goes our way, and it hasn't, which obviously this is a comment with regards to the fact that Schneider has not drafted a quarterback in a long time. Other than Magoo, what was his name? Alex Magoo. The last quarterback that Schneider drafted was Russell Wilson, I think. So a lot of people say, why haven't you taken a quarterback in such a long period of time? And what he's basically saying is, we're not going to overextend ourselves for a quarterback. We're not going to reach for a quarterback that we don't think is worth it. We're not going to take a quarterback just to take one. And what that tells me is maybe there's somebody that John Schneider really, really, really likes more than the average person. Maybe he really likes Quinn Ewers. Maybe he really likes Jackson Dart. But this is not the year to try to get a quarterback without overextending yourself, because these quarterbacks are not very good. They're not that exciting. And they're going to probably go way before they should because there just aren't enough good ones. So if he does stick to this philosophy of not taking a quarterback because he just doesn't feel like the value is appropriate, then this is probably not the year either. So we'll see where things go. But what I take away from this is he's waiting for the right moment. And I seriously doubt this draft will be the right moment. Maybe he's fallen in love with somebody. Maybe he fell in love with, like I said, some people are saying Jackson Dart. I don't get the Dart stuff personally. We'll talk more about him later in the offseason. I don't see much with him that's really worthy of being picked until day 3. But maybe he falls in love with him and he's like, yeah, this guy's worth a first-round pick or a second-round pick or whatever. We'll see where it goes. But objectively speaking, this is not the year to get a quarterback without reaching. Schneider was also asked by Greg Bell about Tyler Lockett, and he praised Lockett, but when he asked about Lockett returning for 2025, Schneider said, I don't know, which is, I don't know how to interpret that other than to say he's probably gone. There was no confidence in the way that Schneider said it, the way he said it when he was talking about Geno, or soon we'll look at how he talked about Metcalf or Ernest Jones. And this is similar to what Mike McDonald had to say about Lockett. I don't know. We'll see, that those vague statements. I think they know that this is probably coming to the end here. And obviously, it's not fun to have one of your, I'd call him a Seahawks legend, go. But I do think that it is overwhelmingly likely to happen, and I think it's the right move. One cool thing that we learned from the press conference today, maybe the most interesting thing in terms of information we didn't already know, Jason Peters is officially retiring from the NFL, and he retires as a Seahawk because technically he was on the team for a little bit last year, but he is going to be an assistant in the front office. Apparently his role is going to be veteran mentor. So he is now a member of the Seahawks front office, which is awesome. Jason Peters, one of the great offensive linemen of all time, maybe the best offensive lineman of his era. He's certainly on a short list. Super Bowl champion, shoo-in for the Hall of Fame. Now he gets to be a veteran mentor. Maybe this is something that can help guys like Cross and Lucas continue to get to their final form as players. Maybe this is something that can help Christian Haynes become a viable NFL player. And presuming we bring in new offensive linemen, it can only help them, right? It did seem like the presence of Steve Hutchinson on this staff was, or not, excuse me, not staff, I think he was in the front office technically, was good for a player like a Damian Lewis a few years ago. So I'm very excited about that. That's awesome. Having Jason Peters around is only good. It cannot be bad. Schneider was asked also about DK Metcalf, and again, look at the way things are phrased here, how different his phrasing is from the Lockett phrasing. When asked about Metcalf, he basically scoffed, said he's under Seahawks contract, he's a crazy physical specimen at wide receiver, and the team loves having him. So he seemed to come down pretty definitively on keeping DK Metcalf in Seattle. And while I do have reservations about that I don't think Schneider seems to echo here, I do think at this point that is probably the correct move. I don't love every single piece of it, but sometimes, actually most of the time, maybe even all the time, you can never make the perfect move. You just make the best possible move and hope that move works out. So the reality is here, we as fans who have all day to sit around and talk about every single possible scenario, we think about stuff that the team could do that the team itself probably never seriously considers. Like, it would not surprise me if over the last few years, with us fans constantly talking about players like Geno Smith and DK Metcalf, it never seriously crossed the mind of the front office in Seattle to actually move any of those guys. So understand that. They look at things differently than us fans do. We think about, the what if scenario. What if we did this? It would lead to that, and then 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 we win the Super Bowl in 2035 or whatever. We think about, well, we could do this, and then we could flip this into that. We could trade this for that. Then we could draft that guy. And then with that draft pick could become something better than what we had before. And we do it from this bubble of being a fan. You can't be fired from being a fan, right? There's nothing that can happen that can get me or you watching this video or anyone else in the world fired from being a Seahawks fan. But John Schneider can certainly be fired as a general manager. Pete Carroll, as we've seen, can be fired as coach, and now so can Mike Macdonald. Anybody can be fired, except for, I guess, Jody Allen, and she could be forced to sell, I guess. It's not really the same thing, but the point I'm making is that when you're in that position where you have something you can lose, you're less likely to do crazy risks. If you have a good quarterback, you don't think, oh, maybe I could go get a great quarterback or the best quarterback if I do this and this and this and this. No, you stay with the good quarterback you have, because if you do something crazy, the odds of you losing your job go way up. You have a good receiver with DK Metcalf, and maybe you're thinking, oh, well, he's not the best receiver, so we should trade him for this, and we should go get this and that, and go this, and then trade it for this, and trade it for that, and then we'd have the best receiver, maybe. No, because if any of those things don't pan out the way you're expecting, you might get fired. If DK Metcalf gets traded to the Chiefs, and he goes on to make the next 6 All-Pro teams, which is very possible, there's a good chance you get fired just for that. So I think that a comment like this kind of reveals that while there may be passing discussion on making some of these risky moves, and sometimes you have to make a risky move, like with the Russell Wilson trade, for the most part, these teams err on the side of, let's just stick with what we have because what we have is pretty good. We're only going to move on from what we have when what we have is actually bad. One other thing John Schneider touched on was how the scouting side of the team and the coaching staff's part of the team have a lot of synergy now, which is something that he implies wasn't necessarily the case before. Like, the front office now understands that they need to get players that can play outside zone, and there's now really good synergy between the front office's ability to find outside zone players on the offense and the coaching staff wanting outside zone players to run their offense. New veteran offensive line coach John Benton, huge in that. So that's also a great thing, because I do think there were times in the last decade where the general manager, where the front office of the Seahawks and the coaching staff of the Seahawks seemed out of sync, where they would disagree on how to handle a certain situation, and the team suffered for it. I think that, just as an example off the top of my head, Marquise Blair. Marquise Blair was a pick that seemed to come from John Schneider. If you read the body language and words that Pete Carroll used when discussing the Marquise Blair pick, I don't think he liked it, and he never really gave Blair a chance before trading for Quandre Diggs and Jamal Adams. So the sense that I got was that that was a pick that Schneider got to rule over, and he got to just pick a guy that he liked, and Carroll never liked it and never gave him the chance that he deserved. Another example would be the Russell Wilson trade. Now, that one ended up working out brilliantly for the Seahawks, but I think that at this point it is basically a matter of objective record that John Schneider desperately wanted to trade Russell Wilson and had been for about a year, and Pete Carroll didn't want to. And the only reason why anything happened with finality is that either Jody Allen stepped in and forced Pete to just give up, or Pete Carroll gave up because he got tired of it and he knew Russ wanted out. Again, that one worked out great, but that doesn't change the fact that I do think that was a situation where very clearly the front office and coaching staff were not aligned. So seeing him discuss this alignment is a good thing. Can't say nothing bad about it. So that's good news as well. That's good to hear. And that's really about all that Schneider said. I know he didn't do anything earth-shattering, but there isn't a lot earth-shattering to do. We've got a new head coach that everybody seems pretty on board with. He's not going anywhere right now. He did a pretty good job his first year. We did swap out to a new OC, but it was kind of a it was kind of a no-brainer move in my estimation. We haven't made any seismic roster decisions yet, so this is what you get. Thank you to BetUS for powering this video. See you guys later. Go Hawks. Probably no more videos today. Probably a video tomorrow morning. See you guys later. Go Hawks.